We have a faith that has so much to offer, the Catholic faith, the faith of the church founded by our Lord Jesus Christ. As we discuss the glories, the mysteries, concerns, and even questions and misunderstandings about the church, join us here in Voices of Faith. Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Ako po ulit si Carlos Antonio Palag, nagbabalik dito sa Faith Watch, dito sa aking show na Voices of Faith. It's not a secret that many students in high school and in college begin to question their belief in Catholic teachings when they enter school, especially in college, in higher education. Para bang there begin to be questions and doubts in their minds about the Catholic faith. And I'm sure a lot of those who are listening to us today or will be listening to this have also had also experienced those doubts and those questions. Kahit ako, as a college student, I had my questions about the Catholic faith. Pero parang as of late, dumadami yung mga estudyante na nawawalan na ng pananampalataya, nawawalan na ng attachment sa teachings ng Catholic Church. So even though they may continue to go to church, go to Mass on Sundays, and identify as Catholics, ang tingin nila sa sarili nila ay free thinkers na or Katoliko, ngunit hindi necessarily naniniwala sa tinuturo ng simbahang Katoliko. Now, to help us understand this phenomenon, at ano yung mga pwedeng gawin nating ano yung pwede nating mga Katolikong gawin in order to meet this issue, I've invited to this show an esteemed member of the Faith Watch family. Siya po ay yung isa sa mga hosts ng Heart Speaks Unto Heart, the show dito sa Faith Watch, although it has been on hiatus for a bit. Di ba babalik naman, Rodney? Babalik naman yun, di ba?
Yes.
So without further ado, I would like to introduce Rodney de Leon, who is also my friend and currently a high school teacher in Everest Academy in BGC. So welcome to Voices of Faith, Rodney.
Hello, Kuya Kaloy, and thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure, especially that you're my fellow podcaster and speaker in this Faith Watch project.
Fellow speaker, and also, syempre, because we're in the common task of promoting and defending the Catholic faith, we frequently come into contact with the same problems and the same issues. So,
Yes.
So let's begin. In brief lang naman, can you tell us more about your current work in Everest Academy, and what is Everest Academy ba? And your apostolates, and as far as I know, your own journey back to the Catholic faith after being an anti-Catholic progressive for some time.
Yes. Okay. So once again, thank you, Kuya Kaloy. So for those who are listening, I'm Rodney de Leon. I'm the host of the Faith Watch show, Heart Speaks to Heart, which focuses on interviewing Catholic converts and reverts. Although once we relaunch it, since it's been in hiatus for a while, we will also have new content and not just interviewing reverts and converts. So as what Kuya Kaloy said, I'm a Catholic formation teacher in Everest International Academy. It's the first and only international Catholic school in the Philippines. And it's run by the Legionaries of Christ, and the Regnum Christi. It's a Catholic religious congregation which originated in Mexico and has a significant presence in America. So, and I also run a Catholic apostolate called Champions of the Rosary Philippines, where we focus on promoting the devotion to the Holy Rosary in this noisy and secular world and making Catholic things mainstream again. So that's why we have monthly Requiem Masses, and we have rosary promotions to schools and to offices. And each member of us, example, one of us is an accountant, one of us is a psychologist, etc. So we promote the devotion to the rosary in our own respective contexts. In my case, since I'm a Catholic formation teacher for high school, I promote it to my students.
Mhm.
And just to tell my story very briefly,
Okay,
since
sige.
para sa ating mga manonood, mapapakinggan nyo ang aking conversion or reversion story. So search nyo lang po. It's the pilot episode of Heart Speaks to Heart, where I was interviewed by my co-host Burns O. Kaasi. So as what Kaloy stated, I was a former Catholic or an anti-Catholic progressive. Well,
Mhm.
simply because during my high school years, I questioned numerous teachings of the faith, such as the devotion to the saints, to images, the papal authority, the magisterium, and I also questioned some social teachings of the church, such as why does the church have to always meddle or speak out when there's a social issue? Isn't there separation of church and state? Shouldn't the church just shut up and focus on religion? And also, most especially during the RH Bill times, I think Kuya Kaloy was active in that battle. Wala ko noon,
Mhm.
high school student pa lang ako na walang kaalam-alam at ang perception ko lang sa mga pare at obispo, mga pariseo at mga pedophile. Ganun ka negative ang perception ko sa simbahan.
Mhm.
But what made me came back to the faith is simply my intellectual rediscovery, where one day it just dawned on me, teka muna, I've never actually read the side of the Catholic Church. So, i-research ko nga sa Catholic Answers, sa ano pa ba, Church Militant, sa catholiceducation.org, and National Catholic Register. And through my constant research, that's what made me, one of the factors that made me realize that, oh, the Catholic Church is correct and true and beautiful. And
Mhm.
another factor which led me back are my very, very many patient Catholic friends na araw-araw tinatadtad ko ng tanong, Hoy, bakit ganito ba ang teaching ng simbahan? Itong Nazareno, hindi ba idolatry yan? I remember, shout out rin to my one of my best friends in high school, Brother Eugene Aboy Opie. He's a Dominican friar now and soon to be deacon and priest. And Ace
Nice.
Villaruel. Yes, okay. They were my best friends in third year high school and fourth year, and they were super patient in answering my questions. And
Mhm.
after college, 2013, that's when I finally realized that fully, oh, okay, the Catholic faith is true. And that's what made me more confident to identify as a Catholic. So
Mhm.
long story short, it's through intellectual pursuit and research, guidance, and also thanks also to the Blessed Mother, because even during my anti-Catholic years, my love for her never disappeared. Ironically,
Mhm.
kaka-question ko ng santo, pero may pagmamahal pa rin ako sa mahal na ina noon. 'Di ba?
Mhm.
Kaya, and she was the one of the really major factors which led me back.
Mhm. Actually, what you mentioned is interesting kasi even in my experience, there are many Filipino Catholics na mawalan man sila ng respeto para sa simbahan, mawalan man
Mhm.
sila ng amor para sa simbahan, mawalan man sila ng pananampalataya sa ilan sa mga tinuturo ng simbahan, nananatili ang kanilang mataas na tingin at least sa ating mahal
Mm.
na ina. And
Yes.
as long as there's that devotion or even just that esteem, that
Mhm.
affection for the Blessed Virgin Mary, there is definitely a lot of hope for them to return to the Catholic faith because Mary will be there and will hihilahin sila pabalik sa ating mahal na inang simbahan. So
Yeah.
ano nga, we
Totoo
have a
yan.
beautiful prayer, diba? That
Mhm.
in which we speak of the Blessed Virgin Mary as she who defeats heresies.
Yes.
And
Totoo,
she does
totoo.
this not by, obviously, no, not by crushing or not by physically or psychologically crushing people, but by overwhelming them with her love. Pinadadama niya yung
Yes.
kanyang pagmamahal, and in so many
Mhm.
ways, binabalik niya yung mga nawawalan tupa back to the one flock of the Catholic Church, where they
Mhm.
realize yung na actually sila'y nagkamali pala sa kanilang
Mhm.
paghiwalay sa mga turo ng simbahan. Pero siguro to come
Yes.
back to your to your
Mhm.
experience, uh, kasi nga you're a high school teacher,
Mhm.
and you were also involved in campus ministry in the past,
Ah,
no?
yes.
So,
Mhm.
in your experience in campus ministry, what can you say about yung general attitude ng high school and college students to the Catholic faith in general? Kasi there are students nga who continue to identify as Catholic, go to mass, but otherwise they oppose Catholic teachings. So, sa experience mo, by the way, ano yung mga teachings, ano yung Catholic teachings na pinaka-unpalatable or pinaka-unpopular sa mga estudyante?
Okay. So, thank you, Kuya Kaloy. Well, for my, yeah nga pala, di ko rin nabanggit, I have a short experience in campus ministry because in college, in De La Salle University, I was a campus ministry student volunteer. And then after that, well, the moment after I graduate, they trained me and made me one of their retreat facilitators. So I
Mhm.
was a retreat recollection facilitator of college students from March 2018 until July 2019. Kasi I left due to personal reasons, and at the same time, naging busy na rin ako sa aking teaching job noon.
Mhm.
Yun. So, what I can say about the faith of college students is that I believe it's lukewarm. I mean,
Mhm.
the general attitude of college students of Catholic faith is that they have so many questions, okay? Nagulat ako na napakadami nilang hindi alam sa pananampalatayang Katoliko, that even the basics na pag tinuro mo sa kanila, pag nabanggit mo, magugulat sila na, ganun pala yun? Tinuturo pala yan ng church? Like example, whenever I facilitate retreats, they thought confession was optional. So
Mhm.
I made it a point to dedicate 10 minutes, 15 minutes discussing confession before they have their confession in their retreat. And also
Mhm.
yung teaching na they shouldn't receive communion if they're in a state of mortal sin. Nagugulat din sila. Kasi may ganun pala. I hear a lot of those sa
Mhm.
mga retreat. Kasi di ba ang retreat mostly ang focus parang the heart. Hindi masyado yung
Mhm.
utak minsan. Pero I make it a point na since this is their pastoral situation, magkatekisis ako kahit konti. After all,
Mhm.
it's part
Tama,
of their
tama.
retreat formation. Hindi lang yan puro ipaiyakin sila, ipadama ang pagmahal ng Diyos.
Mhm.
They should know what they're loving also. Because you cannot love something that you don't know. You
It's
cannot
good.
love someone you don't know.
It's good you mentioned confession, because sa
Mhm.
mga retreats alam naman natin, no? Ako dumaan rin
Mhm.
ako sa school retreat dati, no? Yung tipong pikitin mo ang mata mo. Imagine mo si
Yes.
Kristo,
Tama?
ano, si Kristo sa dilim reaching out to you. Yung mga ganun tipos papaiyakin ka, no? And
Oo.
there's value in that. But
Yeah,
then the
ginawa ko rin
question,
yan.
is this Christ, this Jesus Christ, how do we form a proper relationship with Him? And then you
Mhm.
realize na si Christos mismo, in the Beatitudes, He said, Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Which
Yes.
implies that if you are not pure of heart, you will not see God. So doon pala makita na
Oo.
natin na we need to develop this purity of heart. And obviously we need
Tama.
to develop it while we're still alive, no? Because
Yes.
once we pass away and we face God, there's not going to be a second chance, no? When it comes to our eternal situation, whether we see God
Yes.
or not. No?
Mhm.
So once you
Mhm.
realize that, na kailangan pala natin na purity of heart, then how do we do that? And of course, the most
Mhm.
basic step really is to go to confession so that our sins are cleansed and so that we receive the
Yes.
grace to remain pure in His sight, diba? And so on and so forth. Of course, that's good. That's good for another discussion. Pero
Yes. Tama.
uh,
Mhm.
it's a good thing you mentioned confession, so I'm very thankful for that. But you
Mhm.
also mentioned that they have a lot of questions. Can
Yes.
you
Mm-mm.
elaborate on some of these questions that they have?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I'm speaking both as a former campus ministry volunteer and facilitator and a former college student since I graduated college 5 years ago. So, based on my experience with my classmates or blockmates and with my students in retreat, the most common questions they have, aside from Eucharist and confession, is the social teachings of the Catholic Church,
Mhm.
specifically on these hot button issues of our time, like abortion, LGBTQ or same-sex marriage, euthanasia, contraception, premarital sex,
Mhm.
divorce. Yan ang madalas na hindi alam ng mga student, ng college students. bakit tinututulan ng simbahan? I mean, they have a faint idea, surface level idea why. Like example, divorce and same-sex marriage. Because marriage is sacred. Abortion. Because we're not supposed to kill. Pero kasi, mas nangingibabaw yung arguments ng opposing sides which are making them more convinced of the belief or stance that's contrary to Catholic Church teaching. So, yun ang experience ko. Kasi minsan sa mga retreat, may pinapasulat akong feedback or papel, questions. Minsan lumalabas yun. At saka, isa pa, they also have this idea na science contradicts religion. Kumbaga, alam mo yun, nabanggit mo kanina, di ba, Kuya Kaloy, na they're free thinkers. They believe that they have transcended the need for religion kasi may science na. Like yung sa teaching on evolution, Big Bang Theory. But when in fact, little did they know that the church doesn't actually oppose those two theories. In fact, ito kahit sa high school students, tuwing sinasabi ko na, it was a priest who formulated the Big Bang Theory. Talagang manghang-mangha sila at nagugulat sila.
Nanlalaki ba yung mata? Ganun pa.
Oo. Talaga, legit, oo. Kasi nanlalaki mata at sabihin nila, ha, sir? It's a priest? Pari ba? Kahit mga kaklase ko, pag tinatanong nila, don't you know that it was a priest who formulated? Ha, talaga? Pati yung sa evolution, sinabi ko na, the church is okay if you believe in evolution as long as there are some conditions. Not the full atheistic evolution, ganon. Kasi basically sabi ko, did you know that church says that there's nothing contrary between evolution and creation? They were like, ha? Really? Ganon pala yun. Kumbaga, ang daming, nakakatuwa na may mga ganong moments, but at the same time, magtataka ka rin, bakit ito hindi naturo nung high school? Bakit, how come they didn't remember even the basics or intermediate level in their basic ed years? Kaya yan din ang hugot ko currently as a high school teacher. I make sure to teach as much as I can and deliver it the best way I can in such a way that it will be appealing and attractive to them.
Actually, I have here a passage from the Apostolic Constitution of Pope John Paul II, Ex Corde Ecclesiae. It's actually about Catholic universities. He published this in 1990. It's called Ex Corde Ecclesiae, or from out of the heart of the church. And sabi ni Pope John Paul II, a Catholic university's privileged task is to unite existentially by intellectual effort two orders of reality that too frequently tend to be placed in opposition as though they were antithetical. The search for truth and certainty of already knowing the fount of truth. It's good that you mentioned yung science and science and religion kasi minsan parang nangyayari sa ating mga Pilipino Katoliko, hindi naman katulad sa Europe or sa Western Europe sa Western Europe or sa US na a lot of Catholics when they reach higher education or high school or college, ang nangyayari sa kanila, talaga iniiwan nila ang simbahan kasi they feel na the church is contrary to science, the church is contrary to yung democracy, yung social mores, ganyan. In the Philippines, it's more of nangyayari, nagkakaroon ng compartmentalization. Yung religion, para yan sa faith. Para yan sa Sunday. Pero Monday to Saturday, walang kinalaman ng religion sa aking buhay at sa aking paniniwala about the world, about society, about everything else, walang kinalaman ng simbahan dyan. Yung simbahan, faith lang yan. Pero yung science, yung truth, walang kinalaman yung religion. Parang yun ang nangyayari sa ating mga Pilipino, yung compartmentalization. Ang religion is only about faith. But in fact, it is through faith, it is through religion, the Catholic religion, na we are inspired to know more about the search for truth because we believe that in Catholicism, through divine revelation, we have been given the truth, the absolute truth about our final, our final destination as human beings, about what we really are as human beings, why we're here, and where we're going. No? So, hindi pwedeng hiwalayin yung religion because what we believe about God, about the doctrines of the church, needs to have an impact on everything else that we do as human beings. No? Kumbaga, hindi mo pwedeng compartmentalize ang truth kasi isa lang ang pinanggagalingan ng katotohanan. So, the truths that are found through science, the truths that are found through religion, they all come from the same God. And so they are reconcilable because God is not the author of contradiction. no? And the truth cannot be contradictory. Hindi pwede may dalawang truth tapos magkasulungat sila. There's only one. Ultimately, all truths are in unity with each other. No, they don't contradict each other. They are in harmony with each other. So, and
Yes.
that is what the university, the Catholic University, and by extension, all Catholic institutions of higher education, that's what they're supposed to do, to lead us in the search for truth, pero on the basis of truths that have already been revealed to us by God. Truths that can never be contradicted by science and which do not ever contradict science. Kumbaga, kung meron mang contradiction between science and religion, such as, for example, evolution, the contradiction is only apparent. It is something that should be explained properly. So makita natin why they're actually in harmony. Anyway, since you mentioned, the sciences, these are very sophisticated issues then. In your experience ba, yung social and economic backgrounds may influence din on how students see the church?
Well, if you're gonna answer that in a general sense, we could say na yes. Kasi, in general sense pa to, kasi makikita natin, we could see it in Tondo, in Quiapo, in Baclaran. Punong-puno yan lagi ng mga deboto. And they're coming from lower middle class or even, how do I say this, poorer families. Meron din namang mga may kaya at mayayaman. Pero dito natin makikita na mas malala ang piety nila. But based on my experience, my own ito, as a teacher in 2 Catholic institutions, and as a campus minister, iba-iba rin naman yan. Although admittedly, the current school I'm teaching, it's mostly from the wealthy families. And even my college alma mater where I served as a campus ministry worker for a while, Lasal. So let's face it, pang mga wealthy families. But marami ring scholars sa Lasal, dyan ang Lasal dyan mapagbigay sa scholarships.
If I'm not mistaken, 1 out of 7 yata sa Lasal is a scholar, ano? I'm not
Yes,
sure.
exactly.
Because the 1
Kasi
out of
they're
7,
following,
which is good, ano?
They're following the spirit of Saint Lasal kasi, who dedicated his life for the poor. So based on my experience, despite the fact ba sa isang campus ministry session, merong 3 scholar, merong mga from wealthy families, may mga middle class, upper middle class, mga may kaya. Parang I don't see any connection on their social economic backgrounds. I don't see how it influences they see the church because based on my experience, I hear the same concerns. If I may add also, even in my OJT, nag-OJT ako sa isang parochial school. Okay? So, syempre, alam natin, parochial school, they cater not just to the may kaya, but also to Catholic families na maaaring hindi well-off. But based on experience, sa OJT, campus ministry, and schools I taught, and where I'm teaching, they have the same questions and the same concerns. And how they see the church, yung mga misconceptions, ganun din eh. So I think, ang factor dyan, kaya despite their differing economic and social-economic backgrounds, is social media and internet. Kasi
social
Facebook,
media and internet.
yes, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Let's face it, may mga dyan, anti-Catholic stuff na nagte-trend. So pag nakita nila, kahit ano man ang iyong socio-economic background, if it's the same misinformation about the church, they absorb it. So in my experience, I don't see how it influences the student's perception of the church.
Are there emotional reasons aside from yung mga questions, yung intellectual questions and doubts, and yung influence ng society? Kasi for example, ngayon we're right now it's June, so it's Pride Month. And malakas yung propaganda ng shall we say, the rainbow lobby, or the mga LGBT in pushing their lifestyle as something that is normal and even something that is good and should be embraced. So, malakas tong ganito propaganda, and so there are the intellectual and cultural reasons na maraming Catholic students nasisway sila to oppose the teachings of the church.
Yes.
But are there emotional reasons, family reasons also?
Well, yung emotional reasons, napakadami. Kasi some of them, let's say, okay, religious ang family nila. But ang approach daw ng parents, masyadong pushy and judgmental. Kumbaga parang, it's good that the parents have good intentions, pero yung approach hindi maganda. So dahil doon, growing up, yun ang perception nila of what a religious person is. Kaya turn off sila sa Catholic faith. Yung iba naman, if they encounter, if not a parent, a teacher or a classmate, religyoso daw pero sama-sama naman ng ugali. So dahil doon, they have this emotion now to turn off ang kanilang puso sa simbahan. Another is parang based on my experience naman sa mga kaklase ko at sa mga campus ministry students ko noon, they don't feel that they're listened to. Kasi this might sound controversial, but there is wisdom in the concept of a listening church, but not in the sense that listening for the sake of accommodating everything and watering down the teaching, but rather listening for the sake that to make them feel that they're welcome and they listen, and so that we could evangelize. So I had to make that clarification lang. Pero going back, ayun, kahit sa mga kaklase ko, because for the record, I have a diverse circle of friends in college. Iilan lang ang mga faithful Catholics. Karamihan sa kanila, mga pro-LGBT, pro-abortion, pro-divorce, etc. Ang feeling nila, hindi naman nakikinig ang simbahan sa amin eh. Parang the church is narrow-minded, close-minded. So that is one of the reasons. That's a major factor talaga why they emotionally get turned off from the Catholic faith. Kasi they don't feel listened to, and because of their experiences that forms their image of the church. Kaya ganun.
Naisip ko lang kasi nabanggit mo na yung listening church, and yes, the church really needs to listen, because sometimes in the church there can also be this temptation to just talk among ourselves. To talk shop, devout Catholics talking shop among themselves, mag-uusap-usap tungkol sa mga bagay-bagay without really knowing ano yung mga actual concerns ng mga tao who are not really close to the faith. At the same time, this also implies that the church, syempre, when you listen, you also need to be able to answer. Okay? Because what people naman people will want the church to listen. But listen to what? It's to questions, so people's questions and people's concerns about the church. And so the church needs to be able to answer. At pag ang sagot ng simbahan alam mo, mahal namin kayo, so nandito lang kami para sa inyo. They may feel touched by the desire to accompany them, pero hindi mo nasagot yung tanong nila.
Yes.
And that doesn't really solve the question of paano ba sila mapapalapit sa simbahan? Kasi kung lumapit sila sa simbahan and the church doesn't have any answers for them, then bakit pa sila lumapit sa simbahan, di ba?
Exactly.
So the church also needs to be able to give good, strong, compelling answers. And even if these answers are not what people want to hear, it's important that there be an answer. No? Kasi kahit ako sa experience ko, mas nai-impress yung mga skeptics, those people who have questions about religion, they're much more impressed when you are actually able to give answers. Even if they don't agree with you, the important thing is they know where you stand.
Yes.
And as Catholics, that means we need to be able to to give answers that are based on what the church actually teaches. Hindi yung ano yung gusto nila marinig, but what the church teaches, even if they might disagree with it. But of course, we also need to couch it in a way na meron tayong arguments why we believe the way we do. Kasi kasi kung ang sagot mo, minsan nakaka-offend lang kasi yung for many people nakaka-offend at nakaka-turn off rather, no? For many people nakaka-turn off yung maririnig lang nila yung ang ganito, ganyan, bawal. Dahil sinabi ni Pope ganito, ganyan. Okay, sinabi ni Pope ganito, ganyan. Sabi ni Pope Paul
sa
VI
Bible.
sa Humanae Vitae, bawal ang contraception. Okay, good. Why? Yeah, we also have to be able to give answers na masasagot yung mga arguments ng mga nagtatanong. So they will say, kasi contraception, yan kasi masyadong maraming mga may hirap, nag-aanak. So ano yung sasagutin natin doon, di ba?
Di ba?
And we point out to them na the church does not deny the reality of poverty. Doesn't deny the reality of of yung inequality, an inequality of access to resources. Pero sagot dyan is not by discriminating against the poor and telling them that they don't have the right to have children. The answer to that is the church insists that society do more to to allow the poor, to get the poor to have access to the resources they need to take care of their children. I mean, bakit yung mga mayayaman lang ang may karapatan magkaroon ng maraming anak pero yung mga mahihirap hindi? No? I mean, of
Mm-mm.
course, andun yung concept ng responsible parenthood. We have to be able to, parents also need to be able to take care of the children they actually have. But the point is not to forbid them, not to pressure them as if mahirap ka lang dapat wala kang anak. Hindi pa din ganon.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, having many children also comes with its own also comes with its own blessings, no?
Yes.
So anyway, no, that's for another topic, no. I plan to talk
Oo.
about yung mga ganyang
Yeah.
issues in a future episode. We don't really have
Yeah.
the time to delve into
Mm.
all of that. I just wanted to let
Yes.
our listeners know that yun nga, we have that,
Mm-mm.
we need to be able to actually
Mm.
give, need to be able
Mm.
to have answers to what people are asking. Siguro may may I have last two questions, 2 minutes each. So answer na lang siguro,
Ah.
no?
Ah.
What do you think can be done to what can parents do to help their kids stay Catholic during college? And what can be done to prepare them for the challenges that college might bring to their faith?
Nako, napaka-challenging yan. Pero kasi based din sa hugot ko as a teacher and an educator,
Mhm.
parents really play a huge role and influence. So what
Mhm.
can parents do is first educate themselves about the Catholic faith. Second, educate themselves on how can they introduce the faith. Because it's one thing to know, it's another thing to know how to teach it. And
Mhm.
third, they should be models and witnesses. Like, dapat they're the ones who lead them. Mag-Sunday Mass, mag-Rosary, ganyan. And sila mag-remind, kahit yung anak nila nagdo-dorm na, whether sa ibang bansa for a university or kahit sa Pinas, anak, confession ka, ganyan. Remind but don't impose. Siyempre,
Mhm.
ganun. Kumbaga, parents should make their children realize that this is still important. And it's not something that's a kid thing that you outgrew.
I see. And
Mhm.
sa palagay mo, what can the church herself do, no, regarding
Mhm.
Catholic higher education
Mhm.
that will help preserve students in their Catholic faith?
Nako, I will be very blunt and frank here, ha. There
Mhm.
needs to be a total, complete revamp of the Catholic education system. Not
Mhm.
just higher, but even basic ed. Napakahabang topic to. Siguro, I can speak my thoughts in more details in another episode. Pero ang masasabi ang masasabi ko is this, fix the curriculum. Kasi based on my experience as a college student, Catholic universities, with all due respect to my alma mater and other Catholic universities, they have so many courses in their curriculum that wherein they allow the professors to teach things that are contrary to the Catholic faith. I mean,
Mhm.
sige, for the sake of the liberal perspective, but we should welcome all perspectives because we're a university, di ba? That's the liberal point of view. Okay, fine, if that's the case. But do you even give high emphasis on Catholic church teaching? Kasi mas na-emphasize lagi is yung anti-Catholic positions. But I never had a class which gave me in college an extensive explanation of the church's teaching on theology of the body, marriage, sexuality, human dignity. Wala. Mas marami akong classes na tungkol sa anti-Catholic things. And in fact, ito rin ang aking hugot ba't ako nagtitake ng philosophy for masters. Kasi ang perception ng mga tao ngayon, if you take philosophy, you're gonna be atheist, you're gonna be anti-Catholic, which is obviously not the case. Okay? Ang mga spare, yan ang first course na take nila, philosophy. So how can that be anti-Catholic? Kaya ako gusto ko maging philo-prof so that I could teach them in the future about the Catholic Church's perspective on philosophy, which will enable them to love the faith.
Oh,
So, ganon.
so thank you for mentioning that. Siguro just in brief, no, for our
Mm.
listeners, according to Pope John Paul II, there are actually 4 essential characteristics of Catholic education. Sinabi niya to sa kanyang Excorde de Ecclesia, which I mentioned earlier in
Mm.
this program. And the four essential characteristics are, they are a Christian inspiration, not only of individuals, but of the university community as such. A continuing reflection in the light of the Catholic faith upon the growing treasury of human knowledge to which it seeks to contribute by its own research. A fidelity to the Christian message as it comes to us through the Church. And fourth, an institutional commitment to the service of the people of God and of the human family in their pilgrimage to the transcendent goal which gives meaning to life. Kasi kung wala tong apat na characteristics na to, then what is a Catholic university for? No? I mean, it will just be another university. There's no point calling it Catholic if it's just like any other university. It has to be a university that helps people see the totality of knowledge in the light of Christ, in the light of Catholic truth, and which helps them to bring all of this knowledge nearer to Christ. So, siguro with
Yes.
that, no, we end this episode.